Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. It's your host, Kaylee here, and I am jumping in here for another unscripted summer episode. You are here for episode number 172, and today we're going to answer a really incredible question that I hear all of the time about finding great people for our company. And that question is, Kaylee, where have all the good people gone? And so I figured we'd send out the search party to find all the good people. So where the heck are they, right? And I decided to talk about this in today's episode as I am on the heels of a really incredible weekend at Elite Retreat, which is Revision Skincare's incredible business development and leadership retreat for their top 20% of practices. And what I so love about that is I find it rare to find companies in our space that really get it, that get that business concept of the 80-20 or Pareto's principle that I talk to you guys about all the time. And that being that 20% of our customers represent 80% of our revenue. Okay. And so they know this. And in fact, if you listen to Chris Murray, who's their VP of Strategic Partnerships, and he opened up the event by talking about how these 35 accounts, right? 35 customers of the entire nation had grown. Just those 35 accounts had grown $2.8 million year over year. So meaning not total in what they accounted for, but just what each of those 35 accounts did from last year in 2020. Well, let's call it probably the numbers were probably 2021 to 2022, but how much they had just significantly grown themselves. I thought that was a pretty impactful statistic and reinforced and reminded me how critical it is that we think more strategically in our businesses about how we are marketing ourselves, about how we are positioning ourselves in the marketplace from a brand positioning standpoint, how we are showing up and communicating our proprietary aesthetic method to the world instead of trying to go in and compete and market where everybody else is, right? And so these practices have essentially done that. It was really cool to be in the room there were 25 faculty members. They brought in keynote speakers like Juliana Rancic, Bill Rancic. They talked about their current endeavors as obviously multi-million dollar CEOs of their restaurant group. And we heard from globally recognized key opinion leaders in aesthetics. We heard from CEOs of some of the big companies in our space. And we're sitting at cocktail tables and rubbing shoulders with really the elite business leaders and thinkers in our industry. And so it was an honor not only to be there, but also to have the opportunity to be a speaker on stage and to share my perspective and a lot about my story around this whole hiring experience, right? Because we've all been saying for a long time, like, the world has changed. Where have all the good people gone? Employee core motivations have shifted and they're not really motivated by money anymore. I remember being on a call with a big client who ended up going through our CTS program. And she said to me, I brought in my Allergan BDM to interview my team members and ask them what motivated them. And I couldn't believe they're not motivated by money. It blew my mind, Kaylee. And I was kind of laughing because I kind of think that's an old school mentality. But look, like you and I, right? I mean, if you're old like me, it was a pretty simple equation. Like, you just wanted to make money. And so you wanted to work a lot. as much as you can and as hard as you can. And that pathway for making money was very evident because we made it that way. And there's so many more complexities, obviously, in our industry than to make it that black and white that people aren't motivated by money. But I think it's important to understand that and to recognize and to own the fact that things have changed. And so my position in terms of my talk was really about what are we going to do about this? And the title of the talk was attracting A players during the 2023 hiring pandemic. And obviously, if you want to see the talk in person, you have to make it to the elite retreat with Revision Skincare. But I want to kind of go over some of these core concepts that I talked about in this presentation and give you some of the highlights and key takeaways so that you too can begin to think about your approach to hiring and attracting A players in a different way. And the core concept, the main idea that I want for all of us to really embrace is that while the hiring environment is different, many of us are still going into the hiring experience, right, as a hiring manager or an employer or owner, leader in a business who is responsible for hiring and team building activity with the old habits that we had before things had changed. And when you're a leader of a business, right? Like I know as a CEO, I'm not reporting to anybody. Nobody's checking in on me and being like, hey, Kaylee, did you do this? Did you do that? What's that? What's da 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 da? Like, and making me check myself. And that's why I pay a coach for that accountability. So there's that, right? Because I am that self-aware that I know I need that. But I also realize when I'm standing on stage in front of a room of elite business leaders, they too sometimes need a little kick in the butt. And they need to have a perspective shift, and we all do. And so this is not like a knock on anybody, because if you feel like attacked by this, right? If you're triggered, like, yeah, you're not alone. We all are. And so much of like what I talk about and the concepts that, I try to communicate on this podcast have so much to do with the realities of what I experience daily as a business leader and somebody who is building a really great world-class business. But I want a business that's joyful and sustainable. And a big part of that is having great people on my team. And so I wanted to today just kind of talk a little bit about this idea of where have all the good people gone. So usually when I ask, like, what's your opinion about hiring? I'll hear things like, it's exhausting. If I hire great people, they're probably going to leave me. It's discouraging. I feel let down. I keep failing. Where have all the good people gone? Right? Like questions like this. So these are very common. Very rarely do I hear from somebody where they will say, I love hiring. It's so fun. I just want to do it all the time. Like that never happens. I'm more here like, where do I go to find the good people? Or I'll even hear people ask me, like, if there's great employees on my team, like, where'd you find them? Like, if I went to like the right store for that employee or something, it's pretty funny. People will say, I wish employees performed as good in real life as they did in their interview. And I have all these staffing challenges as a domino effect, like post-COVID, which is like so 3 years ago, you guys, right? So we kind of got to move on from that. And we even had a client a few years ago who had an employee who she reached out to us about putting her employee through our practice manager certification program. And after 8 years with her, she was expanding and multiplying locations. And this employee just didn't really have the skill sets to be able to keep up with the demands of the company. And that does happen, right? Especially if you're growing, when they start with you and you grow so much, right? Sometimes we can't expect an employee to just continue to expand and expand and expand into a role that they probably never were capable of fulfilling in the first place. So you can either try to invest in them or, right, and hope for the best, or you keep them where they are and find someone else. Well, she ended up needing to let her go. And this employee stole the company credit card and went to 7-Eleven and bought a bunch of tampons and candy, and then made this like horrific post on Instagram, excuse my French, saying freedom feels so fucking good. After she had been there for 8 years and been like the prized employee, and our client was really like about to spend thousands of dollars on the investment in training her up and certifying her. And to be honest, my experiences have not been much different. I would say different than that piece, but, in terms of those feelings of frustration around hiring, around uncertainty, around feeling let down, feeling kicked in the gut, like all the time, right? Because what I've realized is that hiring, it's like trying to play the lottery, right? You don't just go and then all of a sudden you win the lottery. You got to play it again and again and again. And you kind of just have to expect that you're going to lose a lot or not win before you do win. And as a leader of this company and really invested so much of my professional career into developing myself as a stronger leader and mentor and manager of people, I still have not been immune to the challenges of building a great team. And I want to share that because I think a lot of times, especially as I thought about, I'm the expert on stage in front of a group of elite people at the elite retreat, right? Like, what are you going to teach people who kind of know how to do it already? And the truth is we all deal with this. And I think a lot of times experts will stand on stage and tell you what to do and talk about how great they are and show off all the things and all their knowledge. But guess what's happening inside? Either A, they don't know what the heck, really, they're just telling whatever their company told you to tell, whatever their company told them to tell you, right? They're just regurgitating information. Or B, they're a big fakey fake because they're just saying whatever they need to say, but like deep inside, they're having their own challenges. And I'm not saying across the board, but like, let's be real in general. And I'll say this, I have learned that some of the most put together looking practices that we've worked with from the outside are a complete mess on the inside. And that's okay. Like this is it, right? And a lot of it's because sometimes we try to polish and look perfect on the outside, but the reality is we all experience these challenges. And I would say tandem with my clients as I'm helping them navigate these hiring complexities, I too didn't realize that I had been developing my own hiring story, right? Like my own frustrations around hiring. And I was on the phone with my business coach and I was talking with her about, it just rattled off. I was talking with her about how challenged I was by hiring. And I said things to her like, I have been through a lot of adversities in my life. I had a terrible knee injury my last year of high school that compromised my scholarship opportunities. I had my house burned down and had to move my family out for a year and rebuild my home, lost my whole home. I lost my brother. I've been through a lot. I mean, those are a few of them, right? Few heartaches. And yet hiring and building team feels so acutely painful. Like it's this raw, like if I was to describe it, it would feel sometimes like just getting literally punched in the gut, like hard. And then you're like already kind of keeled over and nauseous and like about to throw up. And then someone like kicks you there. Like it's so hard. And it brings up all of these insecurities and questions about your ability to lead and inspire people. And why don't great people want to work for me? And you ask yourself all these questions. And I don't think people talk about that a lot, but like we as founders, and especially as a female founder who leads with empathy and having a pulse on how things are going with the people and their emotions and like their headspace and when they work for me, like that's something really important to me. When I said this to her, she stopped me. She paused. She made a long pause. And she said, Kaylee, did you even hear what you just said? And I was like, yeah, I just said hiring's hard. It feels like getting punched and kicked in the gut. She said, stop. She's like, I want you to go back and open up your journal and write down what you just said to me. And so I did. I went back to my journal and I wrote my hiring story. And I'm going to share that with you right here. I wrote, hiring is hard. People are difficult to predict, read, anticipate, and control. Many times I failed because I didn't know what I needed. Multiple employees have left to work for bigger, more established companies. The emotional toll is draining. I feel exhausted. If I'm not on top of things, things might go stray. It's hard to not take mishaps personally. It's a balance between leading, managing, and inspiring. Building a team is the most important part of my job as a CEO, and I don't want to fail. When I read that, I realized it was like it slapped me right in the face, and I was looking right in the mirror as a complete hypocrite, because I thought to myself, how many times I've had conversations with the client, like I just described to you, had that 8-year-long employee who left and decided to steal the company credit card. By the way, we have like way more stories like that. But I realized that I've written podcasts about hiring PTSD, you guys. Like I was like, whoa, how am I telling myself this? And if I'm telling myself this, how am I possibly going to change that narrative so that I can hire great people? And I decided through this experience to write a new hiring story. And ultimately, it was reframing how I approached the relationship I had with people in my company that made the biggest difference. I really started to think about, why do we even hire people, right? What's the point? I needed to change. We keep talking about how things have changed and people are not ready to work hard anymore. Well, was I ready and willing to change? And was I ready and willing to work hard to find great people? And so I had to create some new strategies and shift my mindset around my relationship with hiring in my business. And I have a feeling that what is holding you back, if you're feeling challenged by this whole idea of hiring, is probably less about where the good people are and more about where you are in your head around this process. See, I Googled just preparing for this talk, right? The unemployment rate. It's 3.6%. 3.6%. Guess what? Now I know where all the good people are. They're working. They have jobs. Okay. They're not sitting around on Indeed waiting for somebody like us to throw out a job description and say, hey, come work for me because I'm desperate and I need people to plug holes because I'm tired, right? Which is so often what we do. We'll put out an application, a job description that just looks like everybody else's. And I even typed in nurse in Dallas, right? And there's 5,000 nurses available in Dallas, you guys. So if I'm one of 5,000 people looking for a job, there's 5,000 nursing jobs available. So how do I decide which nursing job is right for me? We just put this out there. It's like, if I was to go on Match.com or something, I'm so bad, like such old school dating sites, go on Tinder. Like if I'm looking for the man of my dreams and I just type in, I'm looking for a man. I mean, who knows? Like, what kind of character do they have? What am I going to get? What's it going to be like when we're together? What kind of quality should that person have? What kind of value systems? And so we're doing ourselves such a great disservice by the way that we're going to market about the employment opportunities that we have to offer. Okay. So first of all, we need to start hiring for people and not positions. When we put an ad out, let's hire for the person and the character that we want them to have. Okay. And the next strategy that I had to implement was hiring entrepreneurs versus employees. You guys have heard me talk about this a lot, right? Fundamental difference here between somebody that clocks in and clocks out and somebody who wants to come in and own that job. Like their position is their own role in the company and like it's their own company within their role. Okay. It's a whole different approach. Somebody who's looking for upward mobility, who's driven by results. Somebody who wants to be recognized for doing great things and can think independently and will go out of their way to get things done, right? Different than checking boxes, working for a paycheck. And then finally, I switched my whole approach around management, which I know many of you are like, I'd rather clean toilets than manage people. Well, guess what? I have a really exciting news for you. You don't have to manage people anymore. You can lead them. Right? It's about mentorship versus management. looking at how you can grow and develop and bring your team members up to be the people that you need them to be in your company. I can think of, on one hand, the number of people who invested in me as somebody who saw something in me that I didn't see, somebody who really wanted the best for me, someone who wanted to develop and grow and mentor me. And we get to be that for somebody else. So I want to share with you my new hiring story. And I hope that you hear this and you really start to think about what hiring means for you and the opportunity that you have to get to employ people in your company and to get to develop and build them onto your team. My new hiring story is building a business is a gift that only 2% of the population has the opportunity to experience. Even fewer have achieved the level of success that our company has. One of the most valuable aspects of this assignment from God is to attract and give growth opportunity, mentorship, and development to other humans. Some people come into my life for a season, some for a reason, and some for a lifetime. And that is really none of my business, because my job is to open my arms to those who are called to me for the time that they are. And we are aligned with each other to teach each other lessons, not to win or lose. I can count on one hand the number of mentors who invested in me, and I get to be that person in this role as a leader. Hiring, team building, and firing is all part of the process of growth and my purpose on this earth. Inhale, exhale, and feel gratitude. I added that part as well at the end. So leader, I hope that hearing some of these nuances and experiences and some of my vulnerabilities around hiring and team building and some of the shifts that I made that has allowed me to not only embrace and view the hiring process in a whole different way, but also to feel empowered and feel gratitude for the opportunity to be able to develop and mentor, inspire other people into leaders in this world, and to put a fingerprint on the path that they may carve, the trail that they may blaze, and the impact that they may make on other people. And I hope that you get to do the same too. And you see that what you do every day is creating such a tremendous impact for so many people. So I hope this helps. Inhale, exhale. I'm proud of you. Keep it up. Mindset shift. Now we know where all the good people have gone. Now go find them. All right, leader. Thanks so much. I will see you same place, same time next week.
Wait, before you go, if you're vibing with this conversation and want to join me on my mission to help 1,000 inspiring and intentional women cross the next $1 million milestone in their business this year, or maybe you want to become one of them, head over to Facebook and join our free community, the Fierce Factor Society. Over there, we are taking this conversation to an elevated level. Get access to resource guides, podcast supplements, and guideposts, direct communication with me and my expert team, and of course, a society of fierce women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to Facebook and search up the Fierce Factor Society. See you there, goddess.